I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My husband, Chase, stood silently while his mother, Patricia, handed me a key with a smirk. "The basement is ready for you," she said. My stomach dropped as I stared at the dark staircase leading down, my suitcase trembling in my hands. And there she was, Molly, his cousin, grinning in what had always been my room, her suitcase neatly unpacked. The shock hit me like a punch to the gut, every laugh and glance from the family piercing my heart. How could they do this? How could Chase, the man I trusted, let his own family treat me like I didn't belong? The basement, cold, damp, and abandoned, was now my reality. Humiliation wrapped around me, but deep inside, a spark flickered. I wasn't going to stay broken. Not this time. Have you ever been treated like a stranger in your own home? What would you do if your husband's family shoved you into the basement while someone else took your room? Comment below, I want to hear your thoughts. Before all of this, life felt like a dream. Madeline Harper, had always imagined marriage as a partnership built on love and respect. Chase, my husband, seemed perfect, kind, attentive, and endlessly charming. His family had seemed warm when I first met them. Patricia, his mother, always smiling a little too brightly, his father, Leonard, quiet but polite, and Molly, his bubbly cousin, who laughed at every joke Chase made. Our early visits were filled with polite dinners, shared stories, and subtle compliments. I never imagined that behind those smiles lurked judgment and entitlement. It wasn't until after the wedding that I noticed the small slights. Patricia correcting how I set the table, Molly borrowing my things without asking, and Chase brushing off my discomfort with a casual, "Don't worry about them." Then came the day that shattered everything. We arrived at his parents' house for what I thought would be a routine family visit. Patricia handed me a key, her eyes cold. "The basement," she said, as if it were perfectly normal. I froze. Molly had already claimed my room, laughing as she tossed her pillow onto my bed. Chase didn't speak, didn't protest. My world tilted on its axis. Every warm memory of family dinners and shared jokes dissolved into betrayal. In that moment, humiliation consumed me, but so did a quiet determination. I wasn't just going to endure this. I would find a way to reclaim my dignity, and those who wronged me would learn that I was not someone to be ignored or pushed aside. The first night in the basement felt endless. The damp concrete walls pressed in on me, the faint smell of mildew clinging to my clothes. I lay on the thin, scratchy mattress, listening to the laughter and chatter drifting from upstairs. Every "oh, Madeline won't mind" echoed in my mind like a cruel taunt. I had imagined spending my first year of marriage building a home with Chase, not being banished to a cold, forgotten corner of it. Days turned into weeks, and each morning felt like a test of endurance. Molly would waltz past the basement door, her voice bright and carefree, claiming my wardrobe and decor as if I'd never existed. Patricia would check in occasionally, offering helpful advice with a venomous smile, while Leonard's silent glances only reinforced my invisibility. And Chase, he seemed trapped in his own hesitation, apologizing in whispers, but refusing to confront his family. His silence hurt more than their cruelty. I tried to stand up, to voice my anger, but every attempt was met with dismissal. "Don't make waves," Patricia would warn. Molly would laugh. "It's not like anyone really cares." My pride felt crushed, replaced by an ache I couldn't soothe. I cried alone at night, curled up on that thin mattress, wishing for a life where respect and love weren't negotiable. But amid the hurt, a spark began to grow. I started observing, noting patterns, the weaknesses in their arrogance, the secrets they tried to hide. Each insult, each slight, fueled a simmering resolve. I realized that enduring this humiliation wasn't enough. I had to reclaim my space, my dignity, and make them see that underestimating me was a grave mistake. By the time the third week arrived, the basement no longer felt like a prison. It had become my planning ground, a place where anger transformed into strategy. My tears hardened into determination, and my humiliation into the quiet, burning drive for justice. They thought they had broken me, But in truth, they had only awakened a side of me they would soon regret underestimating. As I settled into the basement, I began noticing everything I had overlooked before: financial habits, hidden tensions, and little cracks in their seemingly perfect family image. I quietly researched property laws and discovered loopholes that could work in my favor. Every interaction upstairs became a subtle observation: Patricia's obsession with appearances, Molly's careless bragging, Chase's fear of confrontation. I started keeping a private journal, detailing every insult, every small victory they thought they had over me. I sketched out possible scenarios, thinking about how I could turn the tables without anyone realizing my intentions too soon. I bought a small recorder under the guise of a gift for Chase, secretly collecting their own words, their hypocrisy laid bare. The spark of anger had grown into a carefully fanned flame. I found myself imagining their shock, the moment when they would realize that the quiet, compliant wife they dismissed was planning something far beyond their expectations. Each day in the basement strengthened my resolve. It was no longer just about reclaiming a room. It was about proving that underestimating me was their gravest mistake. The day finally arrived. I had spent weeks preparing, carefully gathering evidence of Patricia's financial mismanagement, Molly's lies, and even Chase's unwilling complicity. I had enlisted a family lawyer under the guise of routine paperwork, and today, they would all see the consequences of their arrogance. Upstairs, I smiled politely, carrying the folders and documents that would expose everything. Patricia's eyes narrowed as I entered the living room. "What is all this?" she demanded, trying to hide panic. Molly's grin faltered when she realized I wasn't here to serve tea or obey orders. Chase looked at me nervously, but I met his gaze with calm determination. "I've been quiet long enough," I said firmly. "And now, the truth comes to light." I presented proof of Patricia's secret loans, her misuse of household funds, and documents showing Molly's deception regarding the room arrangements. Each revelation landed like a hammer. Their faces turned pale, shock and embarrassment written in every line. You can't do this," Patricia stammered. Molly's voice cracked as she tried to argue, but the evidence spoke louder than her protests. Chase finally stepped forward, regret in his eyes, realizing he had failed me all along. I watched their reactions silently, my heart pounding with a mix of adrenaline and liberation. The humiliation they had inflicted on me now mirrored back on them. For the first time, I felt the full weight of empowerment. They had underestimated me, dismissed me, and yet here I stood, not broken, but triumphant. That basement, once a symbol of my humiliation, had become the birthplace of my strategy and strength. In turning their cruelty against them, I had reclaimed not just a room, but my voice, my dignity, and my sense of self. For the first time in weeks, I felt truly free. Sitting in the quiet of my own home later that evening, I reflected on everything that had happened. The basement that had once seemed like a prison had inadvertently shaped me, transforming my pain into clarity and strength. I realized that the humiliation I endured wasn't just a test, it was a lesson in resilience. I thought about Patricia's arrogance and Molly's thoughtless entitlement. Their behavior had revealed more about them than about me. The anger and hurt I had felt were valid, but what mattered most was how I channeled those emotions. Revenge wasn't about cruelty, it was about reclaiming my dignity, restoring balance, and setting boundaries that would never be crossed again. Chase had been silent for too long, but even he learned a vital lesson about loyalty and courage. I had shown him and the rest of the family that I was not someone to be dismissed or sidelined. Strength, I realized, doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers in quiet, calculated confidence until the moment comes to assert itself. I also understood that being underestimated was a gift in disguise. Their assumptions about my weakness had allowed me to plan carefully, act decisively, and achieve justice on my own terms. I felt proud, empowered, and fully in control of my life for the first time since the basement became my reality. The moral was clear: you don't have to stoop to cruelty to reclaim power. Standing firm, Acting with intelligence and trusting your instincts can turn even the darkest experiences into a path towards strength and self-respect. Life after the confrontation felt surreal but liberating. I had reclaimed my space, but more importantly, I had reclaimed my sense of self. The basement, the humiliation, and the constant whispers of judgment were behind me. My home finally felt like mine again. Chase and I began to rebuild our relationship, this time with clear boundaries. He admitted his mistakes, apologized sincerely, and showed that he was willing to stand beside me rather than allow others to dictate our marriage. Patricia and Molly, still embarrassed and chastened by the exposure, now treated me with a wary respect. The power dynamic had shifted completely. No longer would I be dismissed or overlooked. I decorated my reclaimed bedroom with care, each choice reflecting my personality and independence. The act of reclaiming my room became symbolic of reclaiming my life. Friends and close family who had supported me were thrilled to see my strength, reminding me that being underestimated by the wrong people could be a blessing in disguise. Even more, I realized that empowerment didn't have to come from confrontation alone. It came from preparation, patience, and trusting my instincts. Every step of my revenge had been carefully measured, but the ultimate reward was far greater than humiliation or embarrassment. It was freedom, dignity, and the reassurance that I could never again be sidelined. The basement was no longer a symbol of my suffering. It was a reminder of the woman I had become, resilient, assertive, and unapologetically strong. Sometimes revenge isn't about hurting others. It's about finding yourself again. That basement taught me more about my strength and resilience than any comfortable room ever could. I learned that standing up for yourself, even when everyone else seems against you, is the truest form of empowerment. I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced a situation where people underestimated you or treated you unfairly? How did you respond? Share your story in the comments below. And if you found this journey inspiring, don't forget to subscribe for more stories of strength, resilience, and standing up against injustice.